What's going on, everybody? What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of D-Lin Reacts. I'm your host, D-Lin, and we back with another video. If y'all can see the title, The Last 24 Hours of the Late, Great Michael Jackson. Everybody know who Michael Jackson is. Doesn't matter. From generation to generation, he's one of the one of the most successful pop artists slash R&B artists slash rock artists we ever seen, probably we ever will see. Uh, he has millions of fans across the whole world. I ain't got to give y'all an introduction who Mike Jack is, man. Y'all already know who Mike Jack is. But without further ado, we're gonna get into the video. Make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what's up.
This is it, and see you in July.
Michael Jackson is the undisputed king of pop. A lifetime of innovation and reinvention set him apart from the crowd as one of the greatest artists and performers who ever lived. But on June 25, 2009, at the age of 50, Michael Jackson would be dead.
Fire paramedic 33, what is your address of emergency?
Yes, sir. I need an ambulance as soon as possible, sir.
Okay, sir, what's your address?
It's 100 North Carrollwood Drive, Los Angeles, California, 90077.
You said Carrollwood?
Carrollwood Drive, yes. Yes.
At the time of his death, Michael Jackson was on a toxic combination of prescription drugs, enough to send anyone crashing down. But how did the most famous man in the world descend into what the judge called medicine madness?
What's fascinating and tragic about the way that Michael Jackson died was the sheer volume of prescription medication that Conrad Murray was administering to him was beyond belief. On the day he died, Jackson had been on propofol, which is an anesthetic which should only be administered by anesthetists, for 60 consecutive days.
Wow. Did y'all hear that, man? 60 consecutive days he was on that stuff. Rest in peace, Mike Jack, man. I think at the time of Michael's passing, man, Michael was he was going through a whole lot. I believe he was real depressed. I believe he was real stressed about a lot of things. They really didn't like that he bought the Beatles catalog. No, Mike had a lot of stuff going on, man. Mike had a lot of stuff going on. We're gonna get into this video. I probably make two parts because this video is kind of long, and I don't want to drag y'all out. So I'm probably gonna make two parts. So this part one, I'm gonna break it down and do a part two so we can keep up to see what's going on, man. All right, let's keep going.
3 a.m., June 25th, 2009. Shockingly, Michael Jackson is still awake, even after receiving dose after dose of dangerously strong drugs. 10:20 a.m. With Jackson still awake and in visible agony, Dr. Conrad Murray makes a final, fatal decision.
He'd taken quite a severe battering from the press and also through the trial, and I just think it just got to him. It really did. It just broke his heart. It killed him.
How did it happen? What went wrong? And how did a man gearing up for 50 sold-out concerts suddenly die? Join us as we investigate the last 24 hours of Michael Jackson.
Make sure y'all hit that bell notification, man. Make sure y'all follow, keep up. If y'all don't know, I react to a lot of paranormal stuff, a lot of spiritual stuff, a lot of activity that's dealing with the other side. I react to a lot of that stuff. But every once in a while, like this video here, I throw a last 24 in there because this is a channel that I like and I'm interested in it. So yeah, without further ado, look, I don't like to stop the video, man. YouTube be on my butt, man. So I have to stop the video. I have to talk to y'all, but I ain't gonna be stopping it too much because I know y'all don't want to hear me talking, man. Y'all just want to get to the good stuff.
Whatever you think of Michael Jackson, one thing you have to concede is that he was an extraordinary performer. One of the greatest performers, not just of his generation, but of any generation.
Michael Jackson has spent almost his entire life center stage. At just 5 years old, he was changing the music industry with his brothers as the lead singer in the Jackson 5, jump-starting a solo career where he delivered hit after momentous hit. From Motown to disco to pop, Michael Jackson was unstoppable.
Beyond Michael Jackson's talent, what made him kind of go beyond the group was his ambition. You know, he was a student of the craft. And so when he wasn't performing, he was to the side of the stage in the Apollo and the Regal, and he was watching people like James Brown and people like Smokey Robinson and Jackie Wilson, and he was watching and learning and picking things up. And so he was such a student of his craft that when it was time for him to branch out on his own, he had a lot of ideas.
I think deep down, everybody was waiting for Michael to go solo, but obviously not saying it. So when we actually saw that he was solo by himself, singing this infectious song that you just couldn't stop singing, we were just like, you know, thank goodness, finally, he's on his own. It was like that. It was a real, you know, to go straight to #1 with your first solo record after being in a band called the Jackson 5s and doing that on your own, that's pretty impressive.
I think what Michael learned very early on in his life was that music and the stage was the place where he felt most at home. And that's where he would escape into. And, you know, when he was in the studio with Berry Gordy and they were going over a song over and over and over, you know, it was hard work, but he liked it. You know, he enjoyed the craft. He enjoyed making music. He loved music.
Real quick, let me know down in the comments what your favorite Michael Jackson song is. You got so many of them, but I started off, and I put mine down in the comments too. I'm gonna have to go with between Thriller. I think between Thriller, Billie Jean, and Leave Me Alone. I think I'm gonna go with them. Thriller, Billie Jean, and Leave Me Alone. I'm gonna go with that.
Learned very early on how to perform, you know, and how to put on that mask. Even as a child, you know, once you hit that stage, you know, you perform and you become a character. But behind that, he was, there's no question that he was struggling with a lot of things and struggling to make sense of you know, who he was and how to reconcile his strange life.
But a key event in 1984 would impact the course of Jackson's life forever. January 27th, 1984. Michael Jackson was starring in a Pepsi commercial. The plan was for Jackson to descend a staircase and execute his iconic dance moves. But things took a turn for the worse. When the cameras began to roll, Jackson took his position as rehearsed. but the pyrotechnics were ignited too early and struck Jackson, causing his hair and face to burn. The burns caused by the pyrotechnics scarred Jackson for life. The day
That's crazy. I was born in '84. Man, that is so wild, man. A man doing a Pepsi commercial and his hair catch on fire. Boy, if that stuff would have happened right now, there would be so many memes out about Michael Jackson right now, boy. Like, people couldn't get enough of that meme, but nonetheless, man, great brother, man. Of course, I don't know him personally, but for us, what he contributed to the world and to music, to people, specifically Black people, it's dope.
damage to his scalp and face left Jackson with no choice but to pursue plastic surgery, a treatment he would become addicted to throughout his life.
It was a huge change for everyone. We couldn't believe his image had changed that much.
Michael Jackson had struggled his whole life with his appearance. As a young child, he was abused by his father, bullied by his older brothers, and lived under constant media scrutiny.
The very least you can say about Michael Jackson, because it's well documented, he struggled with his own identity, his own sexual identity. He was bullied as a child by his father, his brothers. His brothers called him Big Nose. And obviously, later in life, he bleached his skin. He became obsessed with bleaching his skin and plastic surgery. And this is a man whose identity is fundamentally conflicted. He doesn't know who he is, who he wants to be, who he ought to be, who he's trying to please. And he's looking for his place in the world. And when you stand up on a stage as grand and as the one that Michael Jackson spent his entire life standing on, it's very difficult to get the advice and the support that you actually need. And there's no question that he struggled with that. And the way his body was decimated at the end of his life, both by actions he himself took, the plastic surgery, the bleaching of the skin, together with the internal decimation of his body through the use of prescription drugs and the abuse of those drugs.
So that just goes to show you, y'all, you can have all the money in the world and still not be happy. This is Michael Jackson, the greatest pop star this world has ever seen. Has everything that he ever wanted, but what he don't have is a peace of mind. Think about that. You got everything in the world that you could ever want, but the one thing that you don't have, and maybe the most important, is a peace of mind.
No doubt that Michael Jackson's life was a fractured, fragmented life, and that the real story of Michael Jackson is really a struggle to find out, who he was, and to be more than that, to at least come close to accepting who he was, which clearly he didn't. And when you are that conflicted, you are in a high degree of emotional pain or distress, call it what you will, but it doesn't make life easy. And when you put your head on the pillow at night, it doesn't make it easy to sleep, and certainly doesn't make it easy to sleep restfully.
Michael Jackson's past is a difficult one. It's a complex one, and he's the kind of quintessential child star who's kind of pushed into the business, into show business at a very early age. His relationship with his father was difficult. His father was abusive, both emotionally and physically. And that was hard for Michael. I think some of, people respond to that kind of abuse differently. And with some of the other brothers, I think that, it didn't impact them the same way psychologically that it did Michael. It really hurt him, and he carried it throughout the rest of his life, that his father drove him and pushed him, but never treated him like a son. In fact, they called him Joseph. They didn't call him Dad or daddy or father. His name was Joseph, and so it kind of represented that emotional detachment.
I think what the public doesn't know is that he forgave his father for some of the hurt that was caused. And at the end of his life, he was very much on good terms with his father. So I think that a lot of the things, that they happened a long time ago. And, you know, Michael forgave.
When Michael released Dangerous, it was like he'd gone through a new change again, because now his face had changed way more and he'd become even more lighter than before. And everybody was starting to question, okay, what's going on with the skin color? Do you know, this is really odd. I personally believe that no one quite knew if he was actually trying to be white, but they all assumed he was trying to make himself white. And I think it angered a lot of people, because people...
So what do y'all think about that? Was he trying to make himself white? I heard a lot of things, man, and I'm gonna have to say, as much as I love Mike, I think he was, man. You don't understand how hard it is being a black man in America unless you are a black man in America. You know, even with all the talent and everything that Mike had going on for himself, I'm sure in some places they still treated him like a nigga. Excuse me. You know, I might want to bleep that out because you know YouTube be on some hating stuff. But yeah, man, we're gonna get back into it, man.
Felt he was such a good-looking guy and gorgeous. A lot of us were like upset that he was changing his face. We're like, don't change your face, Michael. We love you the way you are. But he'd already changed it by Dangerous. And it was like, so that was the controversy that was going on. People weren't quite sure if he was trying to make himself white or we could see his nose had changed and things were looking a little bit different. So everyone was a little bit, it was a weird time.
He definitely had vitiligo, which, you know, the interesting thing about that is that a lot of people didn't believe him, or for a long period of his career, people didn't even know that he had vitiligo. I think the first time that he mentioned it publicly was to Oprah Winfrey, which was 1993. So when his skin began lightening, people didn't know what to make of it. And then finally he told people that he had vitiligo and people didn't believe him. And, you know, it took really until he died and the autopsy report actually indicated that he had vitiligo. But again, imagine...
I might have to look that up. What is... Somebody in the comments let me know. What is vitiligo? What he just said. Whatever he just said. What is that? Is that like some type of skin disease? No, I don't know.
Being somebody that grows up in front of the world and you have this pretty unusual skin condition, and people are saying things like, you are ashamed of your race, you know, and you don't want to be black, you're trying to be white. So there were things that were his choice. I mean, the plastic surgeries were certainly his choice, but there were things that weren't his choice. And the skin disorder was not his choice, and it was something that he had to deal with in front of the world.
Personally, I actually felt that confused about why he would want to be white. I didn't get that. But I think the problem with that episode in his life, I don't think that they were vocal enough about his vitiligo. And that's sad, because they should have been, because then people wouldn't have been jumping to conclusions and stuff. And I do think that in a way, Michael probably, I think he probably didn't want people to know.
Michael Jackson, from a very young age, had the world's eyes on him at all times. Unfortunately, when he was really young, he suffered a lot of abuse, you know, from his father. His father called him Big Nose. You know, when he started to transition into adolescence, he remembered fans seeing him with acne and just being horrified that he wasn't this child, you know, this child star anymore. And that was very traumatic for Michael, that, you know, his whole identity was wrapped into being a performer and having people love him, his audience, and you know, So when he started, his physical appearance started to change, it was very difficult for him to understand how to deal with that. And he talks about how he used to just go into a closet and cry. And it was very, he didn't want to look at himself in the mirror. And he didn't want to go out into public other than when he went onto stage. And so all of those experiences when he was young contributed to this kind of desire to change his physical appearance. And he was also an artist, and he kind of began to treat his face as a work of art. And he wanted to, he had this kind of various ideals of perfection that he was trying to achieve physically. And so he one plastic surgery after another, and his physical appearance just changed over and over again. And people didn't know what to make of it. But I think there are a lot of complex reasons for why he did that.
I'm gonna stop it right there. Like I say, I'm gonna do a part 2. But what do y'all think about that, man? Let me just get my real take before we get up out of here, man. I'm gonna do a part 2, so make sure y'all look out for that. But love yourself, man. Love yourself, people. It's 2025. There's a lot of stuff going on. Suicide is on the rise. Love yourself. It's a lot of depressed people out here. I know a few. Mental health is real. It really is. Anyone who's ever known someone who has mental health issues, you know it's real. So I just advise y'all to get help. Go get checked out, even if you want to, even if you don't want to, man. Do it for the people around you who love you. Do it for your kids, do it for your mom, your dad, or your friend, whoever you can to get back on track. Do it, because it could save your life. With all that being said, my name is D-Lin. This is D-Lin Reacts. I'm back with another video. If y'all ain't like, comment, subscribe, make sure y'all gonna get down in there and gonna do that right now. I'll holler at y'all in a bit. I'm gonna do part 2 here in a little bit. Peace.